Walter Fernandez isn't a great guy. After Walter saw Abel Lopez cash a check, he approached him and asked Mr. Lopez where he was from. When Mr. Lopez explained that he was a foreigner, Walter laughed at him and told him he was in DFS territory, ruled by a gang otherwise known as the Drifters. Walter pulled out a knife and pointed it at Mr. Lopez's chest. As Mr. Lopez raised his hand in self-defense, Walter cut him on the wrist. Abel Lopez ran from the scene and called 911 for help. Unfortunately, Walter signaled to 4 of his cohorts, who emerged from their hiding spots and descended on their poor victim. They knocked Mr. Lopez to the ground, hit him, kicked him, and stole his cell phone and his wallet, which contained $400 in cash. Detective Clark and Officer Cerrito of the LAPD reported to the scene and quickly deciphered that a local gang, the Drifters, may have been involved in the robbery. A witness told them that the guy is in a nearby apartment. Moments later, the officers saw someone run through the alley and into the building at which the witness was pointing. Almost immediately, they could hear the sounds of someone screaming and fighting in the building. The officers knocked on the door of the apartment unit from which the noises had been heard, and a woman, Roxanne Roja, opened the door. She was holding an infant and appeared to be crying. It also appeared to the officers that she had a flushed face, a large bump on her nose, and fresh blood on her shirt. When asked, Ms. Roja said she had been in a fight. Officer Cerrito asked her if anyone else was in the apartment, and she said that only she and her 4-year-old son were at the premises. Just as Officer Cerrito asked her to step out of the apartment so that he could conduct a protective sweep, Walter Fernandez appeared at the door, wearing just his boxer shorts. Walter was best described as being in an agitated condition. He very clearly told Officer Cerrito that the officer had no right to enter the apartment. Believing that Walter was Ms. Roja's assailant, the officer placed Walter under arrest. The robbery victim soon identified Walter as his assailant as well, and that was the end of Walter's day at and near the apartment. Detective Clark and Officer Cerrito took Walter to the police station and engaged in standard police booking practices. It's easy to suspect that Walter knew the drill. About an hour later, Detective Clark went back to the apartment and told Ms. Roja that Walter had been arrested. He asked Ms. Roja if it would be okay for him to come inside and take a look around. She agreed, and just to be on the safe side, Detective Clark had her sign a consent form too. Once inside, the police found Walter's Drifters gang paraphernalia, a butterfly knife, clothing that matched the description of the robbery suspect, and ammunition. They also found a sawed-off shotgun. It was quite a haul. There is one slight rub to this outcome. Some years ago, in a case entitled Georgia versus Randolph, the Supreme Court held that a present and objecting party must have his or her wishes respected. That case is the topic of another FLETC talk. In this case, Detective Clark knew that Walter objected to the government's entry into the apartment. And while Walter was present, it appears that no entry was made. Walter was placed under arrest under completely different circumstances. And as with many arrestees for armed robbery, he was immediately taken to the police station for processing. An hour later, when Walter was no longer present to make objections, Detective Clark's request went unchallenged. Is it fair for the officers to take advantage of Walter's absence from the scene when they're the ones that created the absence? Here's how the Supreme Court dealt with that issue. If the LAPD had unreasonably removed Walter from the scene just so they wouldn't have to deal with his objection, we might be looking at a different outcome here. But come on, armed robbery? Of course, it was only natural that the officers were going to take Walter away, regardless of circumstances. Justice Alito wrote that, quote, an occupant who is absent due to lawful detention or arrest stands in the same shoes as an occupant who is absent for any other reason. That point went to the good guys. What about Walter's argument that once he stated his objection, it must be honored until such time as he decided to withdraw it? No, the court rejected that notion out of hand. They liked the rule they had. The objector must be present to make an objection, and it remained in effect as long as he or she was present. This was not the situation with Walter. Detective Clark's second request to enter the apartment was met with a valid and unobstructed consent, and the story of the Fourth Amendment continued on. I'm Stephanie Lewis, and this has been a FLETC Talk.